Hey, Joyful Journeyers, Anita Adams here, your host, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my new friend, Anne Cook. Hey, Anne, how are you?
Hi, Anita. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. Anne is a certified integrative health coach, holding space consultant, certified birth doula, and certified medical interpreter in Spanish, I believe.
That's
She
right.
loves supporting others to heal and transform their lives so they can shift from surviving to fully thriving, and supports clients to reignite their inner healer for greater joy and vitality. And that's just the icing on the cake of what Anne does. And I'm going to put her full bio in the show notes and her contact information below, because you're going to want to connect with this lady and find out more. I love everything about what you do, Anne. And I'm really curious. I want to know your story, your journey that led you here to do this specific work. So can we start there?
Sure. That sounds great. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. First off, I was so drawn to the name of your podcast, Joyful Journey, because I believe that when we reignite joy in our spirit on any kind of healing journey we're on, our body comes into a healing state. And so my journey is that for sure. I had gone through a lot of chronic health challenges. And as I was moving through some of those chronic health challenges, I realized that I have to reignite my spirit and my soul in this healing process to reignite my joy. And when I'm in that place of expansion versus contraction, then my body is going to heal. And that's exactly what it's done. And that's kind of my idea of how you shift from surviving something to actually thriving.
I love that. I love the language that you choose too. Like the words are so powerful. Um, you talk about reigniting the spirit, nourishing the soul. You say some of the stuff on your website and how it's essential for healing the process. And you talk about tapping into that inner healer. So I want to dive into that a little bit more. What is that inner healer, and how do you reignite the spirit and nourish the soul?
Good question. So I believe we all have an inner healer that lives inside of us. And whether you call it the inner healer or something else, it's that part of you where our body innately knows how to heal. When we surround it with the right ingredients, the right nourishing ingredients, whether that be the foods we're putting in our mouth every day, how we're sleeping, how we're managing our stress, the people in our lives, the relationships that are nourishing us. Are they draining us? Or are they nourishing us? And so when we start to really trust our intuition and trust what our body's messages are saying to us, because our body is always talking to us. And when we have a chronic dis-ease, as I call it, the body's out of ease and has fallen out of balance. If we start to listen to those messages, then we can start to really get to know this inner healer, because our body has that wisdom that will lead us to the right people, to the right places. And so that's the first step to get in touch with your inner healer, is to start listening to your body's messages and really tuning in to what it's saying, and also just trusting your intuition, because we all have a gut instinct about what the right choices are.
Yeah, trusting that I think is really important, and a lot of people they don't trust that. I grew up with a father who was he'd always tell me to use my brain, and kind of mock my intelligence. So I use my brain, and I would discard anything that was feeling based, that
Mm,
intuition. I suppressed that, and I've had conversations with a number of people that they've experienced the same thing. Like they've had gut instincts before, but they haven't learned to trust it. How do you learn to trust that? Is it muscle? I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting you talk about, being in that headspace, because I feel like the biggest journey for so many of us is literally from here to here.
Yeah,
It,
yeah, from head
it
to heart.
it's about a foot, about
Yeah,
12 inches or so. But
yeah.
it can be the longest journey to instead of living from neck up, we actually become more embodied, and we start to live from our heart, from our solar plexus, our belly, And as we make choices, like especially very important choices when you're on a healing journey from a medical diagnosis, it's really important to come from calm, intuitive action versus anxious action, which kind of comes from here up from the
Mhm.
headspace.
Uh-huh.
And so for me personally, what's really helped me is starting to, close my eyes, and I do a meditation technique called TM, Transcendental Meditation, 20 minutes a day. And for me, this is just a practice of listening to my body and slowing my thoughts down. But that's not, even if you're not a meditator, there are other ways that we can be more mindful of what's coming up in our body just from, focusing on our breathing, and how is my breathing? Is it shallow? Is it from my chest up, or is it from my belly, that deep abdominal breathing? And what I like to say is that helps us get into a relax, rest and digest state, which is healing, versus fight flight, living from head up.
Mhm. Yeah, and so I'm breathing right now. Like I just notice just saying the word breathing is like, okay, well, I got to breathe. Like I can get shallow in my breath, right? And we need to breathe in deeply and take the time to really feel it. Can you explain your meditation process and checking in with your body?
Well, so with the TM technique that I do, I just do a 20-minute meditation, and I have a mantra. It's more like a sound. It's not really a word. It's more like a sound. And I just bring my attention back to that. And what it really resonates for me about this particular technique is that if you have thoughts, that's actually a welcomed part of the meditation. So many people struggle in meditation to
Mhm.
like get rid of their thoughts. Oh, I'm not supposed to be thinking.
Right.
But what they say in TM is that actually, if you're thinking, your body's releasing stress, and it's part of the meditation where your body is literally like releasing stress from your nervous system. And then you just gently bring your awareness back to that sound, back to that mantra. And however it turns out, it's okay. It's all part of how your body is processing things. So, I grew up as an athlete actually, and I've always been somatic based. So meditation never really worked for me until I found this technique. And it's the first time I've been able to feel the benefit, like not just emotionally feeling great, but also physically feeling things unwind in my body.
So I'm a little unclear because I've struggled with meditation. I do meditate and it is getting easier over time. But you talking about how it's okay to let the thoughts come up, and that has been one of the things that I think has stopped me many times in the past is just like, oh, I got to stop this chatter in my head. How do I stop it? And I get kind of wound up and I'm like, fine, and I just give up. It's like I can't seem to stop it. So I'd love what you're talking about is that's part of it, and just actually allowing yourself, giving yourself permission
Mhm.
to have that dialogue, if and let it come and let it go, and then what? Like what is I want to know, what you do to listen to your body and really get tuned in.
Well, so much of my own healing journey, because I had some major health scares that I've gone through. I'm a stage 1 breast cancer survivor, and I like to say thriver. Um, but a big part of my healing journey has been like seeing that as an opportunity and a wake up call to really show
Mm.
up differently in my life, and versus coming at life from a pushing and striving at all costs. Um, you know, really kind of coming into this gentle space of allowing and receiving and
Mhm.
trusting. And so for me, meditation is a great opportunity to practice that. Just surrender control and realize if I'm having thoughts, just kind of surrender to that and allow them to come. And then gently bring my awareness back to my breath, back to
Okay.
my, back to my mantra, it's more like a sound. But it's not a pushing and a striving kind of energy. It's more like a softer sort of feminine, I like to call
Mm.
it, energy of receiving and allowing and trusting.
Okay, and I'm sorry if I keep pushing on this. I want to know, what is your body telling you though? Like if you're like what I think I'm hearing you talk about is that we got to listen to our body telling us that there's something wrong. So how does that show up in your body talking to you? I know that disease is obvious,
Mhm.
like, but at that point it feels like it's almost too late, right? Like, I mean, you can obviously do things to help reduce the disease or deal with the disease, but I want to not be in the place of disease. I want to be able to be so attuned to my body
Mhm.
that I am taking preventative measures when things start going out of alignment. Do you have
Mm.
any tips on how to do that?
Absolutely. So I think that I like to say our body whispers before it screams. And so if we're
Like that.
listening to the whispers, then we never have to wind up with a major medical diagnosis down the road. Because, as we age, like our bodies are more susceptible to disease. But there are ways to actually prevent that from happening and actually have this amazing sense of longevity and great health. Um, and so when it whispers, sometimes it could be like, I know it's different for all of us, but for me personally, if I'm feeling stressed, I start to feel it in my solar plexus. I start to feel it in my jaw.
Mm.
I just start to feel kind of contracted. And so I know, okay, my body's stressed and I need to just take a step back and start to deepen my breath. How am I breathing? Am I breathing shallow? Um, and so just getting aware of your breath and notice, are you breathing deeply? Are you breathing shallow? Because when the body's in that stressed state, which is chronic stress, then that is what raises our risk factors for disease, because it creates something called chronic inflammation throughout the body, which is probably about 80% of chronic illness and disease is because of this chronic state of inflammation. But when we slow down, we focus on our breath and we come into our body instead of just living from our head, we actually go back into that healing state.
Okay, so would you ask your body, like if you're in a meditative state or you're lying down, would you be in inquiry, like where do I feel tense? Like do I feel it in my jaw? Do I feel tension in my solar plexus? Is that sort of like the check-in? Is that what you're doing to
Yeah,
like check in and ask and do almost like a body scan?
that's one thing I do is, just closing my eyes and tuning in to where am I feeling that stress in my
Right.
body and really sending my deep breathing to that part of me to kind of almost envision it, being contracted, like a
Yeah.
contracted fifth and then expanding, living with an open palm.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love to do because I'm very outdoorsy and I love nature
Me too.
is, and I'm very somatic as well, very physical. And so when I feel stressed, like sometimes what actually works better than me than meditation is to get outside and to take a walk in the forest.
Ah, you're
And
talking my language.
like I'm actually more inclined to do that than I am to meditate. I love meditating,
Me too.
but I'm very outdoorsy and I've always been very kinesthetic, I think is the
Yeah.
right word. And so for me, like getting into the forest is so healing and I love the water. Here in Tennessee, we have amazing waterfall hikes. And so one of my favorite things is to go swimming under the waterfalls.
Awesome. I love that about you. That's so cool. And yeah, you're totally talking my language. That's my go-to too. Like I'm getting better at meditation. I really have a hard time just shutting down sometimes. And maybe I've got to stop thinking I got to shut my brain down. And maybe that's part of the problem. But the walks in nature,
Mm,
oh, it's restorative. Like I could just and I find I actually breathe deeply and intentionally when I'm walking through nature. Or I also like to kayak, and I get that same feeling sitting on the ocean. And it's just this
mm,
restorative breathing in, and I feel my whole body just relax.
I love that. Yeah. When you said I could almost smell the water, I was just almost smelling the salt water with you because
Yes.
I know you live near the ocean and I also love to kayak. We have some great rivers in Tennessee and I go kayaking as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna come for a visit sometime, and you're gonna have to
Yeah,
show me some kayaking rivers to do.
you are
Very,
so invited.
very cool. I've heard you speak about your higher power and that higher consciousness and the role we have in elevating that consciousness. I think I pulled that actually from something you said somewhere, that, we have a role to play in elevating that consciousness. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, everybody has their own beliefs, but I really believe that, we have a mind, body, heart, spirit, and soul. And, so for me, it's very personal for all of us, but my belief is that, I have a higher power, that part of me that knows that all is well and doesn't need to be, in fear or in that sort of fear-based action I was talking about earlier, coming from a racing mind, but it's more of that calm, intuitive knowing. So really, coming at a situation, like what really helps me personally deal with adversity is when I have something stressful I'm facing, to create this healing mindset, to say, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
There's something that my spirit must have called in to learn from this situation. So not only can I grow from it, but I can actually pay it forward and support other people to do the same thing. So having that kind of mindset has helped me personally, connect more with my higher power and kind of see things through a spiritual lens versus, sort of woe is me, like, why is this happening? And just getting stuck down in the lower thinking that we can all get
Yeah,
into.
and that lower thinking, I think it shuts us down too, doesn't it? It doesn't allow us to access that inner wisdom. Whereas if we are coming from a place of love instead of fear,
Hmm.
then we're expansive and
Hmm.
we're open to receiving.
Exactly.
receive-
Exactly.
Receiving the messages and the gifts. And I believe there are gifts in every adversity.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, I love what you said about the contraction and expansion, because I actually just went through a grief work training this past summer. And one thing that the instructor was talking about is how we go through these waves of contraction and expansion in life. And even if we're going through something difficult, we don't have to necessarily be completely contracted. We can kind of softly open to
Mhm.
allow those emotions to come up and just kind of move through us. And I believe that can help kind of ease the burden of whatever that life experience is.
Yeah. Yeah. And being self-aware and being able to sit back and step outside of the challenges, I guess, that are we are confronted with, and being unattached, I think is important, isn't it? Like being
Mm,
unattached to outcomes, or unattached to um the challenges that we're facing. And so you can look at it and say, what is mine to learn here? What is mine to understand?
mhm,
I think being an
mhm,
inquiry constantly is
mm,
so key. And I like to believe, that I believe in the I believe in God. I believe in a divine within. I believe we
mhm,
are all one.
mhm.
I have some really strong beliefs around this stuff, which I haven't openly shared before, and I'm excited to be expansive and share that without fear anymore, because I know I'm going to attract the people that are speak my language as well. So
Right.
I like to have conversations with myself and with God when I'm walking in the forest,
Mm,
and that is often it's part of my healing journey. If I've gone through something
mm,
particularly challenging, is having that conversation and opening myself up and being an inquiry.
mm,
What is mine to learn here? What is mine to do? I often um I have a little prayer that I put out to the universe pretty much every day when I go for my walk, and I ask for me to be able to see what is mine to see,
mhm.
understand what is mine to do, and have the courage to do it.
Oh,
And
that's
this is
beautiful.
it's a constant little prayer that I put out there, and I feel things. I feel that expansion, and the fear I mean, fear is normal, right? We all get fearful of things.
Mhm.
Um, but when we can breathe into it and open our heart, like you're talking, going from the journey from the head into the heart and opening it, then it dissipates the fear a bit.
Oh, it does. Oh, so much so. So much so. Even just sometimes when I am calming down my nervous system, I'll just put one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly.
Mm.
And just the act of that just calms me. Um, it helps to take me from being in my headspace down into my body.
That's a great little tip. Something simple that everybody can do, a little action that
Hmm.
when you're feeling stressed, anxious, distressed,
Mm.
putting one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And it takes the physical action of doing that. I think it pulls you out of your head and puts you into your body.
Yeah, I kind like for me personally, I feel like the signal it gives my body is
Yeah.
that I've got you. Like,
Oh, I love that. I
yeah,
got you.
I've got you. I'm
We
listening. Yeah, like the first thing that comes to me is I've got you. I'm here. I'm listening. Um, I've got you. And so my body just kind of relaxes because whatever part of my body is kind of in a freak out state, like
yeah.
know, knows that like I'm here. I've got you. We're gonna get through this.
That
And
is so beautiful. Like we need to see and love ourselves first and foremost, right?
so true.
And that little action, so simple, it takes 2 seconds to do. And
Hmm.
it sends a message to your whole being that, one, I'm worthy. I see you. I got you.
Hmm.
This is a safe space. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what ignites the joy, because when we can walk around in the world, I love that. When we can walk around in the world feeling safe to, radiate our authentic self out in the world and not have like a guard up all the time, but kind of live with our heart open, um, knowing that, okay, I've got you. Like, what's out here is unpredictable. We never know, what's going to happen with other people or things. But when we really know inside, I've got you, then that keeps us in that place of safety so we can actually ignite our joy. That's kind of how I can best describe it.
You're giving me goosebumps. I love it. I love it so much. I'm going to practice that. I'm going to practice that. I got you. And that's going to be, I'm adding that into my new daily routine. It's a little
I,
simple thing. I got you.
I love that.
Yeah. And I said earlier, I believe we're all one. I believe of the divine within. And so I picture God saying that as well. I got you.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, me too. Exactly. We
Oh,
we are very aligned as far as our thinking, because it's not just us with ourselves, but I also believe there's a higher power that has us.
yeah.
And that's been a big part of my journey, actually, is trusting that, because I
Yeah.
think that 20 years ago, earlier on my life path, I don't think I was fully living in that trusting place that life fully had my back. And so I was always like pushing and striving and being self-sufficient. And that led me to breaking down from stress. That led me to some chronic health issues. And now on the other side of that, I am honestly proud to say I'm now in this trusting place of like knowing that life has my back. So,
And isn't there a freedom that comes with that? And there obviously that sense of joy, this freedom to just go with the flow too. Like I'm there with you, and I don't have. I'm ambitious. I am ambitious. I've got big goals and dreams, and I love going after them. However, I'm not hustling like I used to.
mhm.
I'm going with it. I feel supported. I feel connected. I feel loved. I feel joy. And there's this joy that moves through me and with me, and it's carrying me. And I feel like it's because I've tapped
Mhm.
into
Mhm.
that inner wisdom, into that understanding of this higher this higher consciousness, this higher self.
I love that. It's like you can still be a hustler and still be like, motivated, but doing it from a place of joy and calm, sort of a peacefulness mixed in with that versus fear, that's
Yeah.
a real different space to be when we feel like we're hustling, right?
100% different space. I believe there's really two fundamental emotions, and that's fear and joy and love. Fear
Mhm.
and love. And you can choose, to come from a place of fear, or you can choose to come from a place of love. And it doesn't mean that you stop fearing. You can still have fear, can be there, but your actions, the choices you make, always choose to come from a place of love, and
Absolutely.
you will be so well served. We got to love our bodies and take care of our bodies and love ourselves and love our
And I love
neighbors and all that.
I love how you said you can still have the fear. I mean, it's not like it's just going to go away forever. It's part of being human. But when it comes up, coming to that fear with a place of love, like compassionate presence.
Yeah,
And so then it allows the fear just to be there and be present without it overtaking us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Oh my gosh. I feel like you and I can just keep chatting about this joy cycle. I love it.
Yeah.
You wrote a book, or you were one of the authors in the Thresholds 75 stories of how changing your perspective can change your life. Can you talk a little bit about the story you included in that book, and
Yes.
talk to this changing perspective and how it can change your life?
Yes, thank you. I want to give credit to Simon Crow and Robin Van Schwartz because they are actually the authors of the book. And I'm one of the 75 writers who is actually in this best-selling book. So I am one of the authors. Um, However, the name of the book I love, Thresholds, all about changing your perspective to change your life. And so my story in that book is called Birth as I Know It. I have a background as a certified childbirth doula, and I was living in Hawaii for 8 months, and it was the first time I had been surrounded by the water, which completely transformed my perspective of water. Because before I just knew, okay, water is really important for our health. It's important to drink. I love the water, but I had never really had a spiritual connection with the water like I did when I was surrounded by ocean. Um, and so for me, like going back to this story of learning to trust and be at ease and know that life has my back started during that year living in Hawaii when I was lying on my back in the ocean, which I write my story about, and how I had, been dealing with some chronic health issues from stress before that year, and my health started to break down. And then Hawaii happens to have this powerful healing energy about it, and so it just exploded my awareness about how, for me personally, what I need to shift is this getting into this allowing receiving mode, which I like to call more of our feminine energy.
Mm.
And this was back in 2008 that I was living in Hawaii. So I write my story about how my birth doula background, seeing all this birth, I assisted around 200 births in a 5-year period, and how that came full circle back to my own health, and how I realized that my passion for birth is my passion for healing and transformation, because I see a lot of parallels as you've given birth, right? So that like when you're in childbirth and you're in transition, that last stage of labor, it gets really intense and
Oh
it's
yeah.
contracted. But that's just the moment when we can let go and surrender control and just trust our body, that the baby comes out. And what I wrote about in that article, or in that story in the book, is how it's the same, in your life transitions you go through. If we go through holding tight and contraction, then
Mm.
we're not able to heal. But when we can surrender, we can let go and expand,
There's
then
that word again.
there it goes. Then, our body opens up as well in a different way, but it goes back into a healing state. And then all these new opportunities come from
Wow, that sounds powerful.
that. So, yeah. So my story is called Birth as I Know It. And it really just kind of combines my knowledge as a childbirth doula with an experience I went through in my own health and my own life.
Wow, great. Part of your journey to get you to where you are today.
Exactly.
Very cool. I love how all these things happen in our lives that inform us and create the path
Mhm.
to where we are. Really cool.
Exactly.
Very cool. Um, any final comments that you want to share with our audience? Do you have if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, could we put your contact information in the show notes and
Absolutely. The best way to get in touch with me is to go to my website. It's integrativeradiance.com, and that's an IVE, integrative. And on my website, I have a free ebook called
okay.
Surviving to Thriving, and you can download that from the homepage, the very top. My email address is on there as well. And I also am on LinkedIn under my full name, Anne Ferrier Crook. But I would love anybody who, feels inspired, wants to connect. I offer a free 45-minute discovery call. And, through that, we could kind of see, what are your health and wellness goals right now? What are you struggling with? How I can support you? Because I'm not just doing health coaching with my clients, but I also blend in the emotional healing and the grief support. And I call that holding space. And that's also on my website.
I was going to actually ask you about holding space. I was curious about what that meant. Before we go, can you describe that a little bit more? What a holding
Yeah.
space consultant is?
Yes, so I'm trained with a wonderful institute. It's called the Institute for the Study of Birth, Breath, and Death. Amy Wright Glenn is the director. We have about 1,000 members around the world. And as a holding space consultant, I've been trained to support clients that are dealing with not just grief and loss, but difficult emotions that get stored in the body. And so that could be, something you went through 30 years ago as a child, but you just kind of pushed it down and suppressed it. And now it might be showing up physically, as I call dis-ease. And so it's looking at, well, okay, so what was this childhood loss you experienced? Or maybe it was something more recent, that was difficult. And it's holding space for it with compassionate presence. And so I really help my clients to tune in to where it is in the body, how the body's speaking, what does that need to say? Does it have a language or a color or a texture? And so you're really coming into rapport with it versus turning away from it.
Hmm.
And often what I find in my clients through these sessions is they come to greater compassion for themselves, for one, but they're able to make deeper meaning making out of that experience. And maybe they had this belief, it wasn't what happened to them, but it's actually the belief they formed, and they're actually able to reframe those beliefs and come out on the other end with a tremendous sense of just courage and compassion for
Yes.
themselves. And so I feel like that part of the healing process is just as important as looking at the foods they're eating, how they're sleeping, and their lifestyle. So I blend these two together.
Very holistic approach.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Anne, for being here with me today and with the Joyful Journeyers. It's really a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. And I really sincerely hope we can continue to have some discussions around joy, about tapping into that inner wisdom, listening to our bodies, the higher collective, the higher consciousness. I love this stuff. So it's really great to connect with another like-minded individual. And to our Joyful Journeyers, thank you so much for joining us on the Joyful Journey podcast. And we wish you great joy in your day. And we look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.